Welcome to Live from Plato's Cave. I am Mario Veen. This is episode 46, Finding Your Climate Path with Petra Verdonk.
Strange shadows on the wall. Reality is not so real at all. Philosophy invites you to be brave. Welcome to life from Plato's cave.
If you're like me, you've been following other people in the climate movement. People who serve as role models in some way. Not because they do everything perfect, but because they show examples of how to approach situations. How to communicate, how to be human in a warming world. We're all in this new situation, figuring out stuff together, learning on the fly. And it's great to follow people who have expertise that we don't have, or skills, or ways of finding words, or simply because they have been doing this longer than we have. And Petra Verdonk has been one of these people for me. But I haven't had the chance to actually speak with her until now. Petra Verdonk is an occupational and health psychologist and works as an associate professor at the Department of Ethics, Justice and Humanities at the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. In her research and teaching, she focuses on gender and diversity in health and care. She has long-time experience with research and projects in the field of gender, especially but not only women, and with labor and health of professionals, especially healthcare professionals. Petra has been active for Extinction Rebellion since 2019.
Physics, so poetry and art, interdisciplinary start. We will travel, but you're safe. Welcome to life from Plato's cave.
Plato's allegory of the cave.
Yeah.
I speak with many people in this podcast and most of them are not philosophers. So that's kind of the idea of the podcast. Most people know the story more or less.
Exactly. Like me.
Tell me your interpretation of Plato's allegory of the cave and I will tell you who you are.
That's awesome. Tell me who I am. That would be wonderful. So the association I have with Plato's cave is, the story reminds me of Joanna Macy's The Great Unraveling. Like people in the dark somehow seeing things that are not real. And then if you're lucky, you can wake up, you can see things for what they really are. And that's basically what Joanna Macy is saying in her book, Active Hope, and in her eco-philosophy, that the great unraveling refers to how people begin to see the problems of the world and in our lives, and with climate and ecology and things that they have not realized before but are now becoming more and more aware of. And as the notion that the end of the world is around the corner somehow. And that's what Plato's cave also reminds me of, people who are kind of living in an illusion. That's the association I have with it.
When was for you that moment? In a previous episode, we called it the oh shit moment that many people have.
Yeah, the oh shit moment was like the real oh shit moment for me was October 2018. And it was actually a threefold happening. First was a trip to Australia where my daughter lives, my oldest daughter. And we entered Australia in a massive heat wave. And I couldn't cope. I had the flu and I had a big jet lag. And I just couldn't cope with the heat. So I had to call a doctor. And it was also a big confrontation with the disaster that white people have created with colonialism. So it was that and the heat, the combination of stingy, biting weather. And then that summer, there was another experience in a heat wave where I realized that, things are breaking down. And then in October, I read a small article in a newspaper about an IPCC report, like a summary on page 9. You know how that works. It's never front page news. And that was the moment that I kind of collapsed into a crisis. And I really call that an ecological epiphany. That's what it was for me. So yeah, I've never been unaware of global warming, but I have not been that aware of global warming and of the crisis that we're in. Yeah, so that was October 2018.
What were you occupied with at the time? Because you had a long career in issues like inequality and...
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not sure what exactly the topic was. I think we were just beginning with work on menopause and health. And work. I've always been involved in women's health issues and integrating diversity, gender and diversity issues in medical education. And that's also been the topic of my research, and also women's health issues, mainly women or gender health and work issues. So it's always been around that topic, basically. So the inequalities part was familiar to me. I realized, for a long time that there's big inequalities and the social determinants of health. That has been always my focus. The connection to ecology and ecological crisis and climate crisis, that was a next step for me.
So when you started to realize about the climate crisis, you didn't immediately connect it to issues of inequality? Did that come later, or was that...
No, I was aware of these inequalities and in relation to health, but I was not that aware of climate and ecological crisis in relation to inequalities, and that's basically what happened in October 2018. Like, we're going down, and some of us have already gone down, and some of us are going down faster than others. So that was it was a big strike to me.
And so that was about a little bit more than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you feel the inequality has gotten bigger, or?
Yes, it has. Yeah. And I knew that was happening already. And I did not connect all these, let's say, big stories. My husband is working in organic agriculture already for a long time. So he already came home like pretty much every day with stories about lost crops and crop failures and all sorts of nasty issues. Raspberries, like the whole crop breaking down in a hailstorm, for instance, destroyed in a 10-minute hailstorm, that sort of things. But I did not connect the two. And that's basically what happened in October 2018. Like, it's massive and it's all over the place.
Yeah, I've been speaking to many different people relating to climate, but also a lot of, I guess, beta scientists, climate scientists, biologists, chemists and everything.
Yeah.
And often they tell me that they find this issue of climate justice a little bit difficult, because there's a lot of things around climate that we can quantify and that we can at least agree on definitions. And I guess it's the same with the health effects of climate. Mm-hmm. Of course, with many areas, there's a lot of uncertainty, but still, a trend, you can notice a trend, you can agree on different definitions. But with this issue of climate justice, they're often a little bit uncertain on how to deal with it, because isn't justice just a subjective assessment? What would you have to say about this climate justice as more like an academic or scientific issue?
Well, it's a very material issue to me. Actually, it's not a, it's not an academic debate. Yeah, sure, justice as a concept has many shapes, and it can be defined in very many ways, and so it does in climate justice. There's different types and sorts and kinds of climate justice, and so that's not an easy debate. Like, it's not easy to define when something is just. It's easier to define when things are unjust. Actually, that's not too difficult. And one of the things where it is unjust is that Black and brown people across the globe carry the burden of pollution. They carry the burden of the consequences of the climate crisis already for hundreds of years and more to come. So in that sense, for me, that's a very material phenomenon in terms of poverty and in terms of health and in terms of life expectancy and all those things. But I do understand for climate scientists, and that's an issue for science, is that we break down fields in, little niches, and you study ice and I study air, and you study oceans and I study and other people study health, and we do not connect the issues. So I guess I can assume that for climate scientists focusing on modeling and collecting data out there in nature, I think the connection to health and to humans is maybe a big step. I can understand how that would be difficult. And it's also an accusation, I think, towards the climate movement, especially the white conservationists and the white environmental movement, that they have not taken climate justice into account for a long time. I think that's only now beginning. So that's a similar issue when it's based, when your activism and your environmentalism is based on what you see in nature, like species going extinct or icebergs melting and ice sheets melting, etc. I think that would be difficult then to understand how that is related to justice. Maybe. Although you can see people's worlds breaking down. When the ice is melting, you can quickly understand how this would be an issue for people in Alaska and in Greenland and, countries up north, or Sami in Scandinavia. Like indigenous groups would suffer more from those types of destruction of their habitats.
And I guess those things are quantifiable, right? If we look at
Sure.
where the impact is felt around the planet and where the CO2 emissions come from and historically.
Yeah, you can immediately already start with life expectancy. Who dies? Whose children die? How healthy are people? How much access do they have to healthcare? Well, how much access do they have to humanitarian aid? When there's a natural disaster for whatever reason. So I don't know. It's yeah. If you are allowed in your field to withdraw within that field, behind the walls of your, discipline, I think, then the step is maybe difficult. But it's necessary that, we do that step towards other fields and disciplines and connect the dots.
Yeah, I'm thinking where to go next because, well, let's just follow your journey, right? Because you
Sure.
started realizing this and you have a lot of awareness around inequalities. You started probably studying up on what's going on.
Yeah.
did you feel you could do something, or that it was your role to do something besides maybe, recycling and reducing your carbon footprint, which is of course very important, but
Yeah, that was definitely a step. That was a step. There were a few things that I immediately realized. One was we need to sell our cars, and that's what we did. The same weekend, we sold our cars and we bought one electric vehicle back. And I know that is not a solution, but that's one step that we did. We already had solar panels and we have been eating health food for decades. And so that was also like, it was kind of, let's say, it ignited again, the importance of that, of organic food and organic agriculture, and also obviously um, diminishing our carbon footprint. But I also looked on the website of Extinction Rebellion because it was exactly that time, these weeks, where they started with their big action in London. And also Greta Thunberg had just started with Fridays for Future school strikes that August, I think, I believe, around that time. Um, and I realized I had to do something. I had to do more. That was a big sense of responsibility that I have to do more as a person of my age in my 50s, having, lived during the great acceleration, to call it that. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a big issue. And so I started looking for whether Extinction Rebellion um had started in the Netherlands, and there was only this rudimentary website. And a couple of months later, there was a response, and there were more people in my surroundings um, who had left their email address behind. And then we were connected, and we started with a local group here in the southern part of the Netherlands. So that's how my journey into climate activism began. And I also realized, okay, it has to be something that makes more noise than what the current NGOs are doing. So I was already donating to Greenpeace, and I was uh, one of the people who was involved in the Milieudefensie climate case against Shell, etc. I had done that, and I realized I have to do more. I have to take to the streets.
what was your involvement in the climate case of Shell, where the
Just one of the 17,000 people who,
supporters? Yeah.
yeah,
Were you already associate professor at the
yeah,
time? And
yeah,
how did you, make that connection between your professional role as an academic associate
yeah,
professor, where you're also a leader in a sense of different people having PhD students,
yeah,
teaching, having a say in the curriculum, and doing these things of activism in your.
yeah.
Was
In
it
the
for you
be
my professional and my private life, or were the
Yeah,
two
in
more
the
mixed?
beginning it
Yeah.
was. In the beginning it was. Um, but then quickly I kind of came out like a few months later because I felt like I have to do this openly. I did not want them to kind of find out. I wanted to, be open about this and have my own back. And I also felt like if I do this, then maybe others may also feel encouraged to do so, or at least they will be able to see what the consequences are if you would do this. So they can, decide for themselves what they want. Um, yeah. So, but in the beginning, the type of actions that I did were also not directed towards a university or towards healthcare. And so it was kind of easier to separate the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was out there and not not totally connected to my work. that started later when we wrote this uh, open editorial in Trouw, where we targeted Shell. We
Yeah.
said,
So a
yeah,
major Dutch newspaper.
yeah, yeah. We were discussing with a couple of people who were also involved in climate activism. We were discussing together the possibilities for maybe a master program or a minor or an honors program on climate and health and on planetary health, interdisciplinary course. And as we sat together, it was during the pandemic. We were online. And as we sat together, one of us received an email from the head of her department that Shell was having this very nice energy transition hub thing in Amsterdam, a fantastic lab. And was anyone interested in collaboration? And she had received this email from the head of her department, and she said, well, shouldn't we do something? And that's how we decided to write an open editorial that, Shell should be banned from the campus grounds because, they were convicted in the climate case. They should go until they bring their activities in line with the Paris Agreement. That was basically our argument. And that caused a huge stir. And that was actually the moment where my climate activism became also directed towards the university itself. And yeah, really, really this connection to my work. And it was scary. It was really scary in the beginning.
So
Yeah.
the communication by Shell, was that directed at the energy transition? Was it a kind, because I know one of their strategies is also to use universities.
Sure. Yeah.
But they present themselves as a part of the solution, right? Like
Absolutely.
you cannot do it without us.
Yeah.
You need us, and we also want to do it.
Yeah.
But we want to do it in a way that makes sense and
Let's cooperate.
right. And in
Yeah.
internal memos that leaked like 1 or 2 years ago, they said we shouldn't give the impression that we want to go to such a degree that it hurts our bottom line. So that's very clear. That's
Yeah.
the shareholders is number one.
Yeah.
But of course, it would be nice if people perceive us as green and part of the solution rather than the problem. Yeah. So it was kind of that kind of effort to involve you as an academic. Hey,
Yeah.
you care about climate. Why don't you come and join us because we're on your side?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's basically the only reason why they would need the universities. That's basically like they have really good scientists hired, employed. They can do all the work themselves. There's really no big need for these big companies to do small projects with universities. So and they're also not really working on the energy transition. They're really useless there. Their efforts are so small that basically nothing's happening. And the big problem obviously is not that Shell goes into the energy transition. The basic issue is how and when are they going to stop with fossil fuels? That's a big question. So yeah. So that's what we discussed.
Yeah.
Um,
So then you as an associate professor wrote an op-ed in in a major Dutch newspaper saying that universities shouldn't work with Shell, basically.
Yeah.
Did you sign it as with your
Yes,
professional
I did.
title? Yes.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was about the university. So it was about the university. I did not sign this as climate activist. I signed it as associate professor. And you really have to think about that whether you do it and why and how you can defend yourself when there's criticism. But I felt it was necessary. I mean, this is the biggest health crisis pretty much ever. Well, at least in the 21st century. and towards all of humanity. So I think I have something to say about this issue when it comes to health. So we published it, and then there was a very quick response from the board, and they asked for a meeting, and we had a meeting. It was originally planned for half an hour, and it took 2 hours or maybe more. We had a very good, really good conversation, and there was real listening.
Had you sent them the piece before you published it, or did they find out when it came out?
They found out. Yeah, they found out.
Because I guess you have academic freedom.
Of course we do. Yes, of course we do. Definitely. And that's also something that you can, rely on and should be able to rely on as an academic. Obviously, we cannot always. There are other issues now, for instance, where that's more difficult. But that's a different story, although connected. Yeah, and so they started a conversation with us, and among them, and as this went on, they actually quickly took steps to have a larger dialogue with the whole campus. And that was really a good idea. And so they invited the community to come up with arguments with one-pagers for whether to or whether not to collaborate with Shell, bring their arguments to the table, and then there was this big session, big meeting where the pros and cons of collaboration with Shell were explored, and based on that, they would make a decision.
And was this with just staff or also students?
Everyone. Yeah. Staff and students. Yeah.
That sounds great. I didn't know that. That sounds like an ideal response.
Absolutely. It was like everyone could respond, and the student gremia, the student representatives, and everyone could respond. And in the meantime, we had organized an IPCC report reading marathon in the main hall of the main building. And it took a week with time slots of 30 minutes, and people could sign up if they wanted to. And that appeared to be a very good mobilization event. So we got together. We got to meet other people who were also involved in, climate issues, environmentalism, anti-capitalism, whatever. And there we became a group. So that's how Scientist Rebellion at Vrije University became like a force, a bit of a force. Yeah.
And what is I talked to somebody from Scientist Rebellion before, but for people who haven't heard it, what is Scientist Rebellion?
Scientist Rebellion is a community that is affiliated to Extinction Rebellion. Yeah. So similar demands, similar principles and values, and also focusing on the science and like a bit of a different scope, such as XR agriculture has a different focus. It focuses on particular issues and topics.
Yeah, and if I'm correct, anyone who has a PhD or is working on a PhD can join. So
yeah,
it's actually
scientists
comprised of people who can call themselves scientists.
Yeah, like XR healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
Like a professional community, or XR public servants, for instance. Yeah.
And speaking of XR healthcare professionals, you must have worked with a lot of healthcare professionals and students.
Yeah.
So what's your observation about whether they are free to engage in activism, whether it's supported, whether it's seen as a private matter?
it's hard to say something general about that because
Yeah.
there's so many different types of health professionals and they do have a lot of autonomy. I also think that in healthcare, they have been lagging behind, I think, for a long time, but now after the pandemic, like green teams and climate activism is mushrooming, I should say. So there are initiatives everywhere. There is the issue of like how do they take climate justice into account, which is often more often not than yes. So that's an issue, but like the plastic waste, the single plastic use, anesthetic gases, pollution, um, fossil fuels and heating and lighting, etc. That's all being picked up right now. So a lot is happening depending on where you are. Like the bigger hospitals, they can do something. In the poorer sectors of healthcare, such as nursing homes, etc., it's more difficult. There's also a different, let's say, type of healthcare worker. So the highly educated and those with large, with bigger autonomy in their work, they can do more things. It's very often volunteering job. So it's the policy is still lacking very often. Like there are these non-binding statements that yes, we're going to adhere to the Green Deal. We plan to whatever in 2030 or 2035 or whatever, but there's no planning, etc.
That always, it's, to me, seems like such a schizophrenic situation almost, where on the one hand, even the government and the major healthcare institutions, at least in the Netherlands, they acknowledge that this is the greatest threat to public health of the 21st century.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the way it's organized is often in the sense of like well-meaning volunteers and green teams and how you say that.
But that's a similar thing. That's similar with health inequalities. That's also like an add-on. Like it's something that, people who are interested in diversity issues do on the side. Or you have this, part-time employee who can implement diversity in a whole big hospital. So these are like these big issues are not taken as serious as it should. Really not. So that's a big problem. Um, but I do see things happening, not fast enough, but the younger generation is really standing up. Basically, it's the you know, young professionals doing this. Students are driving force for medical education, the CO2 assistant. Maybe you heard of them, their movement. And they are fantastic. They're really,
It's nice because it's like they're the co-assistant, but then they make it CO2 assistant. So
like a really funny student joke, like really a student joke. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you hopeful?
Yeah, I'm hopeful when it comes to the younger generation pushing for change. Um, well, yes and no. I also think that things are breaking down also in healthcare all over the place. Um, and yeah, we need more vision there. We need a decent government who takes on the big issues of our time. And I don't see that happening. So in that sense, no, I'm not hopeful. When it comes to the younger generation of doctors and health professionals, I am hopeful. I see that they really have social justice. They're putting that front and center in their ask for change, really are. Yeah. Yeah. Whether they are strong enough or manage collectively to make that change, I don't know. But I see for the first time in the past years, I have seen things happening that I have never seen before. The students being like politicized and being engaged in political questions. That's new, basically.
And we're only talking about the last couple of years. It's been a
Yeah,
really short period in that sense. I mean, of
yeah,
course,
yeah,
it's everything is too
yeah,
slow. It's too little.
yeah, yeah. It's too little and too late, or it is little and late.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, but it's something, and it's also big. It's also big in that uh, I did not see coming that the students would make that move. I have come to know medical students as conservative, as very conservative, as very like conforming to the power structures and the hierarchies, etc. And I really see now that they just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, which brings me to your other ad in Trouw about,
Yeah.
I think that was 2022. Probably that's the first time I read something that you wrote.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you know the one I mean. Can you
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
summarize it?
Yeah. I think it was about it. I remember why I wrote it because I was running into more and more students who were quitting their studies and did not want to finish it anymore, didn't know what to do with their studies, etc., because they felt it was disconnected from the things they were concerned about. Um, and I think that not only medicine, but also higher education in general has been too concerned with uh, developing employees for companies instead of engaging with students and having having ideas or vision for what the world should look like and what they think the world should look like. So that was one of the reasons, and I don't know exactly what I wrote, but it was like kind of this idea that students just did not want to do it anymore. They're disconnecting from what we offer them.
My thought at the time was also that, so at the time I was working at also a university medical center.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have all these buzzwords sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
I remember like 10 years ago, everything was about patient-centered this and patient-centered that.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it became about, I think, innovation and technology, which is still around.
Yeah.
But then, I started to notice everyone is talking about future-proof this and future-proof that. And usually they were talking about things like ChatGPT or artificial intelligence. But then basically you wrote something saying, well, students are tuning out, quitting, because the education that we offer them isn't preparing them for the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. From an educational philosophy perspective, it's for me very fascinating to have this traditional idea of education is that it's kind of passing on knowledge down the generations, right? So
yeah.
You're working there as a more senior associate professor and a teacher, which means you have more experience and you have more knowledge, and they just start. But my observation, and I'm pretty sure yours is the same, that where this comes from, also in education, is from young people. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you know her, Juliette Matthijssen.
Yeah.
I interviewed her a few weeks ago, and she was at the time still a medical student, and she was already developing education.
Yeah. When it comes to the climate crisis, we are all beginners. But the students know more than their teachers. And the knowledge that we need is not around because we're not studying that. There's no research on the issues that are relevant. So if we want to make a turn, we have to make a turn, both teachers and students at the same time. So we have to make that switch. And that means that we need to sit down and discuss what it's going to be about. And exactly this traditional, master student approach that we have been using, and especially in medicine, I think, where this is very much the hierarchical way of studying still, you just follow your superiors somehow. Even though in medicine they have been trying different pedagogical and learning approaches and developing also like problem-based learning, for instance. But still, it's very traditional, and the content is also very traditional. So, if we want to prepare students for what is coming in terms of health and ecology and the climate crisis, we have to start inventing something new, and we have to do that together. It's impossible for the seniors to do it because we don't have the knowledge, and the young ones, although they're more engaged and we need to know what they're worried about, they also have no knowledge on where it's going. So it's building the plane while we fly, basically. Maybe that's not a good metaphor for the climate crisis, but something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has to be done quickly.
But that sounds like more of kind of a. So if we're talking about the context of the university or more the knowledge institutions,
Yeah.
It sounds that it's shifting towards more like a partnership.
Yeah, co-creation and yeah. And it also means that you have to build curricula or make space for learning that is not so completely set in stone as medical education is now. Because there's just no room for there's hardly any room for change, for new things, for trying out things, for skipping things that have become obsolete maybe. It's all like predetermined. The learning goals are set and the exams are set, and it's all, in paper, and accountability for what you have done and how, and whether you have, asked the right questions and your test questions are okay, and etc. So there is this notion of quality of education as set in stone, and lack of flexibility and possibility of change. And the curricula in medicine, they are so tight, they're so full. We really need to start, we must dare to skip things and teach new things, make space for new ideas. I'm afraid.
And were you able to implement some of that when you were working at the VU?
Well, I have developed a minor program, Amsterdam Global Health. That was a minor program in collaboration with family medicine or general practice and public health. And so the students were, doing small projects with NGOs in Amsterdam. And there were like whole weeks about what have you, gender and health, sexual diversity and health, migration, health systems, etc. There was more room in like more flexibility to bring in new things and things that were, timely, things that were in the news, and obviously also the climate crisis and assignments about that. Yeah, so but that was a small group. It's not like I mean I could do that with 25 students, but not with 350 as you would have in medical education. We would like need to have a bigger plan for that. Yeah. Yeah. scale up innovation there.
But it sounds like you were pretty much in a good position there because you worked as an associate professor, which is, I mean, you were like those, maybe those students having their oh shit moment, but they wouldn't be able to have the impact that you had, right? Because I guess you also have a different listening from other people in the university, just because you've worked there for a long time and your experience and your position and everything like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it worked like that. But I had the position to develop a minor program. And that was already a big thing. I have been developing over the past 10 years, I have been developing a longitudinal pathway on diversity issues. The medical students, the CO2 assistant, have been, if I am correct, have been doing something similar, like checking, analyzing the curriculum for what is in there and where are opportunities to implement planetary health issues. So they have done that, and I have done that for diversity issues. And that's been a lot of work and the position that I had. When it comes to connecting the two, I have not been in a position to make that change for the whole curriculum. So there, it would have been necessary for me to sit at different tables than I was.
And so, and whatever you want to say about that, but I was surprised to hear that you left the university just a couple of weeks ago now, right?
Yeah, I have handed in my resignation. As of the 1st of April, I have a small part-time position until the beginning of next year, so I can finish some projects and supervise PhD students. And I have decided that it was enough. And it was enough for a lot of reasons, some that I do not wish to go into now in the podcast, which is okay. But I'm looking also forward to working more on climate justice and health issues. That's what I'm taking the time to figure out what my next step will be. I'm 59. If I have to make a change, or if I want to make a change, I should do it now and not wait another 4 years, because then I think I will try and make it until I retire. I don't think I will make another move anymore. So I think if I should go, now is a good time. And I would love to do more work on climate justice and ecological crisis, and in relation to health.
Sounds like a great position to be in, to be honest, because you've studied, you know what's going on, and you can kind of analyze, well, where can I make my contribution?
Yeah.
Reminds me of what do you know Kimberly Nicholas?
No, I don't.
She wrote one of my favorite books about climate, which is called Under the Sky We Make.
Okay.
She has this, what she calls 5 steps towards climate realism.
Oh.
And I always use that it starts with ignorance. Then number 2 is avoidance. And number 3 is doomism.
Yeah.
Which this is one of the reasons I use it, because I always ask who is doomdenker, who's depressed and everything.
Doomer, yeah.
That's great, because you're already at step number 3. Let's go to step number 4, which is the emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Which I would love to talk about with you a little bit later, about frustration, anger, hope, and all those kind of feelings. Yeah. And then step number 5 is finding your climate purpose. So that's where you beautiful. Find, where is my place in this big story that I cannot solve on my own, and what can I do?
Yeah.
I'm also saying it because one of the things I notice in the climate movement is that people are getting burnt out.
Yeah.
because many people have been
We do.
working on this for 2, 3, 4, 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you can never do enough,
No.
and you get a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
I feel there's a way, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So we
Yeah.
need people as well in 5 years and 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, how are you approaching? Because this is maybe a nice question in itself.
Yeah,
Like
it's fantastic.
you're taking a major life decision.
Yeah.
You're okay. You're just 1 week since you quit your job, so probably that's still going on. But how are you approaching that? Are you going to read? Are you going to speak with people? Are you going on a Vipassana retreat?
All of that. No, well,
All of
maybe
that.
not the Vipassana.
Okay.
But yes, yes, I'm definitely going to read. There's a whole pile of books. I started in Leah Thomas's The Intersectional Environmentalist today, and I read Latour today. So yes, that's definitely part of my plan. Yeah, I also intend to have conversations with people and try and find some guidance from people who can help me think and plan and make a plan. I also need some time to rest. It's been
Yeah.
a roller coaster, my life, anyways, but in particular the past years. So I need some time to do my garden and in all sorts of ways to find some rest and to make my life a bit smaller. I have had a long commute. I live in the south of the Netherlands and I travel to Amsterdam 4 hours per day back and forth. So that's been heavy, and I can use some time to catch up with family and friends and hikes and holidays and a little rest and also doing a bit more actions than I have been doing because I love to participate in Extinction Rebellion actions. And I've been doing a lot of work on building the movement locally and in giving trainings, etc. And I would also love to participate a bit more during the week. So yeah, when it comes to burnout, because that's a fair question and really important, one of the things I realized immediately when my crisis happened was that when I start doing this, this will be for the rest of my life, and this extends beyond my lifetime. So that I realized immediately that this is going to be a marathon and not a sprint. And so that's how I joined this movement, as in I have to be able to do this for a long time. So that means that I have to keep myself alive while I'm doing this. And that's one of the things that I really find important in Extinction Rebellion is the regenerative culture that we try to build. And I'm also not the youngest, obviously. So I do not expect after one action that things are changing. I can see that difference with the younger generation who are just starting to, to do collective action, and then they've done two big actions and they're very disappointed that they have to do it again. Well, for me, I have been implementing gender and diversity issues in medical education.
How is that going?
And we just have to keep doing that,
We just had a nice report coming out about Me Too in medical schools.
It keeps being an issue, so you have to do it again and again and again. So there, I have a little bit more experience of how long and how difficult things are if you want change. And then sometimes they go overnight. They change overnight. But you have to keep pushing. That's the only thing you need to do. That's your job as an activist. And I think that's also maybe something that the older generation has to bring in the climate movement, like to bring some rest and to, warn them and to take care of the younger generation and keep them alive, make sure that they, don't burn themselves out and that they can still do it in 3 years, that they can still do it in 10 years, that they can have families and have jobs on the side and or have the activism on the side or mix everything, but think about having a life and not uh the problems that we all have with our friends and our families and you just have to take care of yourself and your loved ones.
Yeah, I think it's an important point that I'm a big fan of the grandparents for climate.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Because yeah, if we work together, it's I guess it's a parallel with what we talked about in education, because the
Yeah.
older and younger generation, I mean, the younger generations, they have a lot of energy. They can, there's a lot of stuff that they can do, but there's also a lot of stuff that they lack and that more experienced generations have, like time, money, experience, how to
Yeah.
organize things,
Stamina.
patience, persistence. Yeah.
Yeah. Networks, tools, whatever, resources. But you won't find me climbing in trees.
No.
No, there are a few things I will not do. I will not tie myself to a gate or whatever. I just won't. So I can bring other things and they can bring other things and we can support each other. And that's just wonderful about the climate movement, I think, if you are intergenerational. Yeah. So that's a big issue, and that's something that I realized quickly. I cannot do this every day. I should not even try because I have to keep this up for a long, long time. And it's been working so far, I think, I don't know, 5 years or so. I've been doing this besides my job, and that's been going well. It also brings a lot of energy before your listeners start thinking, oh, I need to quit my job and because otherwise I will be burned out. It doesn't work like that. It also brings a lot of energy because I think that the emotions that you have from facing this big crisis and the problems that you're seeing, happening, this great unraveling, I think that uh, channeling the emotions in activism is very helpful. And that's also backed up by literature. So taking action, and that's why I get really angry for uh, the fact that so often anger has a bad press.
Yeah.
Anger really has a bad press, and it's so untrue.
I was so happy in your I guess I can link it in the description, your final presentation or the
Yeah.
presentation at your goodbye, to see the term mood splaining, which
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jem Bandel, such a
Fantastic.
brilliant invention. But
Yeah.
you have something to say about that too.
Yes, I did. I did because it really pisses me off. Because that's also an invention of the industry and of, the system, telling us how we should feel. And anger is a mobilizing force. Now, of course, you can be burned out and you should not, be enraged all the time, especially when it's aggression and when it makes you do things that you regret. That would not be my advice, but it really can help you to organize and mobilize the energy that you need to take action, and also with other people. So anger is a fantastic driver for change. It helps against depression. Obviously, again, when you don't do it all the time, some dosage is great. Um, but yeah, we're just supposed to not be angry. They're breaking down
Yeah.
our world, and then we're supposed to not be angry. How is that even possible?
But that's it, right? It's not about you have to be angry all the time, but when you feel anger, it's
Of course,
healthy to express that in a healthy way, of course.
exactly, in a healthy way, but it's also healthy to feel anger when they're breaking down your world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm really quickly annoyed with positive psychology.
Yeah, that's a big trend, right? But of course, it is important to focus on hope and how to find a way. But yeah, we have this whole range of feelings, and
Yeah,
it doesn't always, it's maybe it also is full circle back to this climate justice, right? Because
yeah,
we are talking about how we should feel about this, and it's also kind of a luxurious discussion, right?
exactly. It's just white fragility, to be frank, you know, to 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 worry about the climate, to talk about how you should feel and how you should not be angry. Um, and 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 also climate anxiety. Somehow we should channel that into action. I think that's really that's really totally necessary. Also for the younger generation. If we're older, we need to help them to channel their anger and to channel their emotions into something purposeful, and not leave them alone with their fears and their anxieties and their anger and their despair. And I think when we do not address these issues and we do not participate in actions and in activities towards the climate, I think we're betraying the younger generation.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
I interviewed Ines Schelfhout about intergenerational trauma and intergenerational effects,
Yeah.
which is for me personally an interesting topic because my grandparents were in the East Indies, and I have a history with that as well. But after that conversation, I thought what we really need is we in the Netherlands we had this like national philosopher and national poet and national writer. We really need a national therapist because this kind
Beautiful.
of stuff is hardly talked about
Yeah.
and of course we are in the Netherlands, but for different countries as well. Like, how do we have conversations collectively about something that affects us all?
Yeah. 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 I think there's, that's for me, that's a recent realization that we're all so in trouble. Also, as a psychologist, that's maybe a weird thing to say, but I mean, it's just, a new realization how much we are in trouble, all of us. Um, so there's this really collective trauma somehow, and this collective sense of loss. I found that in Latour's book today, so beautiful.
Is that
What?
facing Gaia?
No, it was where can we land?
Ah, yeah,
Where can
nice.
we land? Political orientation in the new climate regime. And then he says something about people, refugees and people migrating and leaving their country. Uh, but he says something like, we all have this experience of loss because our countries have left us, our countries are leaving us. Our governments are leaving us. The land is leaving us. It's changing. It's, with the bees are disappearing and the butterflies and the species, etc. We're losing the land maybe to the sea, or the land is leaving us, and it's a beautiful, tragic way of looking at it. But I think so very true. I think that sense of loss that many people have.
Is that for you still really an open question that you're examining, or do you have any insights that you can share about that?
I don't know, the sense of loss, or that things were lost. I don't know. I think I'm just late. I'm late, there's so many things that I have not realized before. I have studied complementary and alternative medicine in my 20s, and I've been always very interested in medicinal plants and botany. And then I started doing other things, and all I did with this knowledge was when I was hiking and looking around and looking at plants, which was like, okay, so there's St. John's wort, and there's that plant, and then there's that plant. This sense of, when all else fails you, there is medicine out there somehow in the world. And then for a long time, there were so many plants that got lost. I just didn't see them anymore. And it didn't occur to me that they were not growing there anymore. I just figured that I was in the wrong place. I figured, like, oh, this is not the place where I could find these plants. It did not occur to me that they were maybe gone. So that sense of loss, that's something that I feel in the past years. Like, when you wait too long, then you have to realize everything at the same time, I think. Maybe. I mean, other people are maybe more aware of life and the things that happen around them, and I have been obviously not too perceptive. But yeah, so this sense of loss, yes, I do feel it. And I think many of us do. And I think that's something that connects us all, also in the Netherlands and beyond the Netherlands. And we all have different responses to it. And some take the right wing, extreme right turn, and others take, the eco-modernist turn, but and some take the activist turn. But that sense of loss, I think that's something we share. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I keep thinking about Bill McKibben, who the Third Act movement. I keep thinking, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing what your third act will be.
I'm also looking forward to it because I don't know yet. So let me know.
Let's speak again next year or something.
Let's
can find
do
out.
that. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Everything we see and seem is but a dream within a dream. Strange